Hi everybody, welcome back to the Underwater Photography Show. We haven't done one of these in a while, so today we are doing another of the inspirational Instagram series. So I think this is number 7. So Alex, if you would like to go ahead and pull up the first one.
Yeah, I always enjoy these. I think it's great to. I think all underwater photographers should look at pictures and also look at them critically. I think are really good things to do, especially when they're good images. And I like the fact that you choose these selections because they're always a little bit of a surprise for me. And they're often pictures I haven't seen otherwise. So this first one is from Shin _Kazama. And I'm guessing that's Japanese script. And Kazama sounds Japanese. But if you're not, I apologize to... Kazama probably means probably not even a name, so probably shouldn't guess these things.
Yeah, but this is so. I have obviously have a special place in my heart for weird fish. It's no secret. Snailfish were never super high on my list of favorite things, and then I saw one the last time I went to Washington, and I have become obsessed with snailfish since then.
Wow! So I didn't pick this as a snailfish. I thought it was kind of maybe more like a, I don't know if you know the blue groper from Australia, kind of that big wrasse. It kind of looks a bit like that, really. Like
it does, yeah.
I didn't. I guess now I look underneath its chin, I can kind of see it.
It's the little.
It's pectoral.
So I think this species I think isn't endemic. I think it's endemic to Japan, or it's at least that cold water Pacific area over near Japan. And I believe they get quite big. Like most snailfish,
this looks big.
Ones that are 6 or 7 inches. I think these guys get about 2 feet, which is huge for a
snailfish. Wow. The ones we have in the UK are kind of, which are very rare. This sort of, I've only seen one. These sort of tiny things. They're like an inch or less.
So the ones on the east coast of the U.S. up in the colder water, we don't have them down here, obviously, are those same small ones. Like they max out at maybe an inch. The ones in Washington State, I assumed were the same size, but the ones we saw were about 7 inches, so still bigger than I had anticipated, but obviously nowhere close to the size of this enormous one. But I love snailfish. They guard their eggs too, which I think is cool. So there's a little bit of parental. They'll lay them in or on things, and then the male guards them until they hatch, which I always find interesting. And yeah, they're a weird fish. There's nothing else really quite like them. And they're just the wackier the better as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, no, I'm very happy to see you.
Cool portrait of a cool fish.
Bringing up the wacky fish in this episode. It's part of the inspirational Instagram tradition. Right, I'm going to try and move on to the next one, which is by ShallowSe's gallery, and it's a picture of it's a picture of a sea urchin test, and living inside it, I think, is maybe a small little basslet or grouper. I
think it's a lantern bass, or sand perch, maybe.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those. The little.
The mouth looks like that, doesn't it?
Yeah. But I love the symmetry on this one, and the central composition of the fish works really well in a case like this with those perfect, all the rays of the urchin going out symmetrically from it. And there's a ton of those dead urchins around. This was shot at Blue Heron, and it's not infrequent that you see little fish using them as at least temporary homes. I've never seen a dwarf sand perch or whatever this is.
I think it might be a lantern bass, but I don't know.
That was my first guess. So maybe Dave will message me and correct me on whatever it is. But usually I've seen like sailfin blennies or things like that in there. So seeing a little grouper, and it's got good eye contact as well, which I really liked, and I really like the purple color of the exoskeleton because usually when I see them they're white or brown or something like that. So nice to see some color in there as well.
Yeah, so in British diving we get these urchin tests quite a lot, but they tend to get broken up except in sheltered environments. So particularly in the sea locks, you tend to get them surviving long enough. Because obviously in more exposed environments, the waves break them up. And I guess that's why you also get them at Blue Heron, is that it's protected.
Yeah.
So you get that environment. And we get these little hovering gobies living in them. And that's kind of the opportunity we get with them. And they often lay eggs inside and then come in and out. A little bit like sort of a pygmy lemon goby or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Used to seeing in Asia. But yeah, this is a really nice twist on that, and very different kind of subject. All I would say is that this is one of those shots that's really easy to visualize as a photographer. You see this on a dive, you're like, yeah, I can definitely get that. But then the opportunity to get the shot that's in your mind is often many, many dives away. And you just have to keep working on it, and eventually you get the luck. So yeah, nicely nailed. I'm going to move us on to number 3.
Cool.
Which is by Byron _ Conroy, and a picture of a frogfish here. I'm just trying to. I think it's a warty, isn't it? It looks like a warty.
I thought painted. I don't know.
Yeah, the lure kind of. I thought it was a warty, and then I looked at the lure, and the lure looked more like a painted. But this coloration is it's hard to tell with the distortion of the MWL.
Yeah.
Which one it is anyway.
But yeah. Close focus wide angle picture of frogfish will get me every time. And this one has its lure out, which just adds that little bit of extra interest. So it's obviously I'm hard pressed to say nice things about Byron because I don't want to do that publicly. But it's a cool wide angle portrait of a cool fish, and it always is interesting to me to see these kind of images of, especially from places like Lembe. There's nothing out there. It's just black sand, and this guy's just vibing out in the black sand all by himself. I'm sure there might be sponges or something around, but it always looks so barren with these type of images, and that doesn't always lend itself to the close focus wide angle pictures. But I think this one still works nicely, and having the lure out is added interest and puts something up in the top of the frame as well. Yeah,
I really like the fishing and the lure, and I'm always been a big fan of. I'd much rather see a frogfish fishing than a frogfish yawning.
Yeah.
I think it makes for a great picture. I'd have perhaps liked a touch more feeling of space from the background in terms of the exposure. Really, I find, but maybe it's just on my screen and I have got it turned down, so it's. But I find the background a little bit dark. So I like how the frogfish looks on the dark background, but a slightly slower shutter speed I think might have allowed just a little bit more depth to come through compositionally, and just help give the picture a little bit more three-dimensionality. But the lighting is really nice. I really like the level of exposure on the fish, how it's brought out the texture, and it's almost like it's glowing from within, a bit like a kind of a lump of lava with all the kind of the light coming in from around those darker patches. And that sensitivity on the lighting is really nice. Okay, we've now moved on to Mclan Wild, and there's a strange pair of bedfellows here. I don't think they're proud parents.
So the banded jawfish with a gold spotted eel. I've seen the eels sharing these kind of holes with other eels. I've never seen one sharing one with a jawfish, much less with a jawfish with eggs. So this is a really cool picture for me. Cool natural history picture, I think. And I love a jawfish with eggs, and getting them. The eel too looks like the jawfish almost moved into the eel's home, and the eel's just kind of getting squished to the side of his own house. That look on his face.
Welcome tenant who just has more and more children.
Yeah, exactly. And I like the fact that the jawfish eggs are very well developed, so you can see all the individual eyes in there. Like I said, just a really cool natural history picture that he didn't overcomplicate it. He just shot the scene and showed off a cool moment. And I like it a lot because of that.
Yeah, banded jawfish are great subjects, and I think they're kind of I know you get them at Blue Heron, but they're in a lot of the Caribbean, they're kind of a reward for exploring some of the less charismatic environments. They're often shallow, they're often on hard pan or in rubble areas, and I think it's so I really like seeing photos of them because the average tourist who goes to the West Atlantic doesn't see these. You have to kind of go and seek them out, and they've got such great eyes, and they're quite they're full of character. They're really nice jawfish. Okay, moving on to number 5 is by Jules Jacobs _ photo, and also shared by Net Zero Expeditions, and it's a big sunfish in the Pacific Ocean, I presume, off California.
Yeah, so I love molas. They're one of my favorite fish. I've been fortunate enough to see two. One was from the huge one from the surface, actually in San Diego, where this one was, and then a small one in Monterey. And when they're little, it's like shooting a mirror. They're so reflective. It's just hopeless. As they get bigger, they start to, they kind of get like a matte finish instead of the reflective. It's such a cool fish. I'll stop at every Mola picture. It's a nice portrait. They look so goofy, with that tiny eye, the constantly open mouth. And I like the dark, moody water too, because usually when you see them in San Diego, the pictures from there are bright blue. And this just kind of has a different aesthetic. And probably my favorite part is all the texture he got on the side of the fish with the natural light from above, creating all the contours on its skin and underneath its chin, or whatever you would call that.
I was going to say exactly that as well. I really like the texture, and it's and like I said, it's come about because it's taken on a cloudy day.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot to be said for shooting pelagic species, individual species, on cloudy days. I don't know, you don't really get to control things, but I think that a lot of big cetaceans, a lot of big pelagic species, they can look with flash. They can look good when the sun is sparkling above them, and the top of them has got sun, and you've got sun rays in the top of the picture. But particularly when you're shooting with available light, I think they so often, those sun rays and the sun patterns on them, stop you seeing the details of the animal. And actually, the flatter light from a cloudy day, I think, really suits them. And I don't hear people talking about that enough. And it's something that I think, it's almost, if you're out there and you're shooting, without strobe, you almost are wishing for cloudy conditions, because I think the cloudy conditions, although you lose, a stop and a half of light or so, I think what you gain is this ability to really see the detail on the creatures. Yeah. Okay, rolling into our next one, which is by Sage Ono Photography, and I'm presuming this is not that far away from the previous one, certainly from a global perspective, of this octopus in a kelp forest.
Yeah, so this was shot in Monterey. I think it's a Pacific red octopus. I don't know if it might be a Pacific ruby octopus.
It's got lovely colors on it, with the blotches of white.
Beautiful octopus, so that was the first thing that caught my attention. And the other thing is, I really like these wide angles, small in the frame underwater pictures. It's something I struggle with, so every time I see one, it stands out a bit more to me, because I haven't really managed to do a lot of them nicely yet. And plus, I love octopus. I love kelp forest. And I think he used the snoot for this, a little bit of strobe light just on the octopus and leaving everything else a bit darker. It makes it pop even more than it would if he had lit the whole scene with strobe. And like I said, the octopus itself with that white and red pattern on it is pretty spectacular.
I really like the background of this shot very much. Yeah. I think the way the kelp renders in the green is really, really nice. It's got fantastic atmosphere to it. It's not kind of in your face like, you get a beautiful blue day out at the Channel Islands and, you've got kelp like really contrasty with the water. Here it's kind of just different shades and textures of green, which I really like as a background. It's very atmospheric. I think I would have liked to have had this octopus a bit bigger in the frame. I accept that, you like it being small in the frame. I feel it's such a beautiful octopus. I kind of like to be able to see more of it. And so maybe a shot where just a little bit closer to that octopus, but still have that same background. For me, I think I'd have liked more. Okay, let's roll into number 7, which is by Steven_Kovacs_photography. And this is a weird beastie that I don't know what it is. I'm just reading.
That's why
it's a 1-inch long baby luvar. Of course, how silly of me not to know.
I had no idea what this was, and I knew I wouldn't remember, so I left the caption on this one just so we could go back and see what sort of fish this is. I'd never heard of this. I'd never seen one. And leave it to Kovacs to be the one to find it, because he's out there every night. And I don't know how many of these have been photographed, but as far as I can tell, he's the only one with a picture of one. And I suppose, I like Blackwater. It's not my absolute favorite thing, but I suppose that's what keeps people going out. Is there's so many things out there that are potentially new that nobody's ever seen or photographed. And this is an example of one of those. I didn't even know this was a thing until he posted it. And just a really wacky looking fish where The whole front of the head looks completely transparent, like there's nothing actually in there, like it has no brain. And the head is just oversized for the sake of being oversized, and all the crazy filaments off the bottom. It's a really weird fish. A great portrait of it, and something I had never heard of. So that
yeah, really cool. I've never seen it, and I see quite a lot of his stuff, but I didn't see this one when it came up on Instagram. I'm not on Instagram enough to spot them all, but yeah, really cool. Okay, and I think this is our last one,
yep.
Which is by Corone 138, and it's a picture of a Cfan in Raja Ampat with a cowrie cruising itself across it.
Yeah, another small in the frame picture. I think when they work, they can work really, really well. And the cowrie still stands out despite being the same colors as the Cfan.
It's very nice cowrie.
Yeah, I like the composition of it. It'd be interesting to see this with a blue background, but I think this is so graphic, it probably works better with the black background. It contrasts.
I think it'd be hard to get those white polyps to look nice on a blue background. I know I have a well-known picture that achieves that, but generally, I think unless you have sort of those polyps, that I think they'd probably get lost a bit on on a blue background. And I think the polyps are one of the prettiest things in the picture.
Yeah, they give that white contrast to the red or pink, or I can't tell colors, but whatever color they are.
I think for me, I really love the composition. I think the picture's very well executed. It's not the nicest bit of Cfan I've ever seen. And I know that sounds like a really silly thing to say, but actually when you go for these relatively simple goby, shrimp, crab, cowrie on something, I think the perfection comes in the detail. And you have to kind of, search and find and turn down a lot of subjects before you find that key one that's got everything going for you. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with this shot, other than maybe I'd like to have seen a more perfect Cfan. I just think it's the regularness of the surroundings that often give the picture the graphic strength. And here there's kind of some nice bits of Cfan, but maybe a slightly different composition, a slightly different part of the fan. It looks like there's quite a lot of nice fan off to the left. Maybe if the carrier had been top right, you'd have had maybe the option to have that. And that's the only thing I'd say about it, is that I like to see fan perfection in these shots.
That's fair.
Cool. I think that's our last one. I'm just going to move.
Yep.
Yeah, that's our last one. So I'll bring us back up onto full screen if I can press the right button, which I can't. There we are. We're back on full screen. So thank you, everyone, for watching that. Thank you, Matt, for choosing them. And we'll be back again soon with another episode of the Underwater Photography Show. Bye.